Hmm.
Okay, so we are officially live. Of course, we've been live here on Zoom, so I just wanted to welcome everyone who is currently in the Zoom chat. I can post the link to the Zoom chat for those in Facebook who prefer to view us on that particular platform, although you did receive those within your emails, but you know, it's always good to just add the notification. So in the meantime, Omar, no rush. We're just giving people a couple of minutes to come on in before we get started. So I know you're jotting some notes down.
Making my French press.
Press
here.
Good.
Coffee cup.
Yeah.
This is one of my friend's companies, Latte Express.
Nice.
Yeah, he gave me a coffee cup for Christmas. It was cute. Yeah, that's how we do in Brooklyn. We give each other gifts of our businesses.
That's right, to promote the business, right?
Exactly. I was honored. I'm like, I'm honored. He was like, you know, everybody getting one though. I'm like, but still, man, I'm so honored that you thought of me.
Right.
Coffee out of your cup.
All right, so I am about to post a Zoom link and pin that in the comment section. There we go, pin comment. So the Zoom link is pinned in the comment section of the Facebook, in Facebook, for those of you who want to join us on Zoom. But either way, we are here on both platforms and we are ready to get started.
Yes.
So we have Omar Davis here. Omar has been with us for a while now. He comes in with the metaphysics and biology and anatomy and puts it all together in a way and where it makes sense, so we are not lost within ourselves and everything that we discuss and everything that he does. And one thing that we have not really gotten into, which I'm excited about in the past, is just general self-healing technique. The importance of it, the reminder that we also have the ability, we have many abilities.
Yes.
We can actually do a lot of our self-healing, whether it be on a cellular level, energetic level, thought patterns, and so forth. So we're going to discuss different ways with that. And it's a great way to jumpstart and create foundation for becoming your own shaman, right? So with that being said, Omar, you can take it away. Feel free to begin wherever you see fit, and then we'll just take it back and forth from there.
Well, I guess let's first start with shaman, or the term. Terminology is really important when it comes to understanding what you're trying to do. Like, you know, a lot of people like myself who are Afro-Latino, I was schooled by a really good friend of mine through etymology. And he's like, yo, we only call ourselves Latinos because the people that named us Latino come from a place in Spain that's called Latino. And those people were black and white. They were all shades of brown. They were all shades of white. But yet we only call ourselves Latino because we've been taught that, and apparently that means that you speak Spanish. But those people spoke Latin, not Spanish. And so, funny enough, I was like, huh. So I have no idea where I come from, is what you're saying. They're like, you're like, yeah, facts. And so to understand terminology is the first major clue. And so for me, I had to learn, what does it mean to be a shaman? What is a shaman? Just to be clear, everyone is their own shaman. Everyone is their own inner shaman. Like, you don't have to go find the shaman. You already are the shaman. It's just accessing certain ideas. The only thing that makes a shaman and you different is the fact that you don't have the same knowledge that shaman has. And once you acquire the knowledge, then you become that which is So the shaman is just a phrase that we have taken from cultures that pretty much say it's the wise man or the medicine man or the guy who could do some like supernatural healing. But the shaman in the old days of our ancient text were what we read about in Christianity called the magi. The
Mm-hmm.
magi is short for magician. And magician means magic, right? So we fiddle along this idea of shamanism, but and then we say like, if I say, oh, I'm gonna do some magic, people be like, oh, you're a magician, ha ha, clowning you. But if I'm like, oh, I'm a shaman and I'm gonna come and shake some shit over you and make some noises and I'm gonna make you suddenly heal because I shook some bones and some rattles over you or whatever. But the magi and the shaman are the same. The magi itself is someone who acquires the knowledge of the elements. Now, the elements are the things that make up the entire universe, but we're not going to go there yet. We're just going to touch on that. So, in order to become a shaman, you have to first understand that we are all magi, and the magi seeks knowledge. They're no different from anyone else. They just choose to seek knowledge. That's their focus. The knowledge of what is the question, and they seek knowledge of all things. And so this is where we bring in alchemy. Mm-hmm. So alchemy and magic are actually the same thing. Alchemy is the study of the elements, which we all like to know: air that turns into fire, that turns into water, that turns into earth. And if you combine all those together, it makes the quintessence, which is the fifth element, which creates physical manifestations. Now, the elements are not like physical air and physical fire. It's psychological, and we'll get to that again later. Okay. But I want people to understand that it's really about understanding the terms that link back to the actual root, which is alchemy. And alchemy means alla, all, chemi, chemistry, all chemistry. And all is everything that's not included in chemistry, because chemistry is physical. Atoms are physical. Like, mm-hmm. We don't see them, but atoms are physical manifestations. They're not etherical. Etherical is before, like, when it's just thought and consciousness. There's no form. You think and you focus, and that's what creates form. And that's actually one of the key points of inner healing and self-healing, is your focus 9 times out of 10 is on all the things that create chaos. So obviously, like if you read a book and you read about a character who is negative the whole book, and at the end of the book, there's like, but I don't understand. And you're like, what you talking about? The whole book you was negative. That's kind of how we do. We spend our entire time being negative on small things that we completely lose the focus on what is in the now, what is present. And so with that said, I guess let's go back into the ideas of understanding. Is there any questions? Because I know some people may have beliefs or ideas that come with shamanism and magic. Mm-hmm. So just to clear that up.
No questions so far. It's been pretty clear. I know my in addition to what you said is shamans, once the concept of death was created within the human psyche or consciousness, that is what created the shaman in itself, mm-hmm. because the shaman was looked at as to walk between both worlds, since this other world was created through the concept of death.
Yeah.
Those who were either afraid of death or not going into the veil of understanding that death and life are the same, they separated that concept, which the shaman was able to bridge those two together for people who were not of fear, just afraid to walk through the shadows or the darkness of themselves. So I just wanted to add that understanding that I have on like the shaman's work as well.
Yeah, and you're right. You're absolutely right. It's like straddling, mm-hmm. The shaman is the straddle. And one of my clients who's not from America was using that word. She's like, is that how you use that word, to straddle something, like to be on one side and then on the other? I'm like, yes, but it's also what you most likely are talking about is about being on a horse. And it's not, I mean, technically you're divided when you're on the horse. One of your legs is on one side and the other one's on the other. So you straddle a line, so to say. And so that's what you do as the shaman.
Someone did ask or suggest, or ask, I should say, it's in question form. Would you say that the Magi or the Magi seeks knowledge and the shaman has developed wisdom? Is there a difference in knowledge versus wisdom, or both of them basically accumulates the knowledge and wisdom and simultaneously, basically?
They're exactly the same person. There's no one's a student and one's the wise man. The shaman only means what it means to you is because the culture that you come from told you that that's what it was. But back in the day, 5,000 years ago, there was no such word as shaman.
Mm-hmm.
It was the magi, and or the magi, like how you pronounced it. So it depends on how, where you come from. But at the end of the day, the student is always the student. Like you will never not be the student.
Right.
Shaman is always the student. But there comes a point where the shaman or the magi does have specific wisdom that cannot be digested by students because they don't have the understanding. They don't have the capacity to break down the information in a way that actually allows them to comprehend, if I can even like use that phrase, because it's just like your digestive system. If you eat food that you're not ready for, it's just going to pass through your body bulky. But whenever you eat foods that your body knows how to break down, you break it down to its core, to its finite element. You take every single matter out of that and you break it down to most likely glucosamine. And then you take that glucosamine and you use that energy, because glucosamine is it's a bunch of atoms that make a protein. But you use those atoms, which the elements live within, and you take them and they become a part of you. So the shaman is consistently breaking down information that they can digest.
Mm-hmm.
But that also is why you're always learning, because the shaman still has its limits. Like if you can't teleport, then you're not there yet.
Transfer your consciousness into
the
eye of the bird or
exactly. Like, like one of the Buddhists, Siddhartha, one of my favorite stories is when he was coming out of his state of sexuality and sensuality with his mistress and this woman that he was deeply in love with, and he was in his physical body, and then he realized that he's lived all these different ideas, but one of the things that was so vivid is he was describing how he's been this and that, and then he was describing how he projected his consciousness into the deer that was being eaten alive. I projected my consciousness into the bird that was flying above. And when I read those words, I actually felt the deer. I felt being like I was being eaten. And it was the weirdest thing ever. I was like, I don't want that. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm being eaten. And then it hit me. I was like, but you have to know all things because you are creator, and the creator knows all things. So you can't shy away from being eaten alive, because technically you're being eaten alive right now by your ego. And I'm like, oh no. Any rules. But what it comes down to is really just basic understanding where we are, where you are, and being honest with yourself in this idea, because we haven't even gotten out of the definition of the lingo yet. We're just still talking about how you have to understand where the information comes from to even begin to digest.
Right.
And even with that question, like, is the Magi more wise or is the shaman more wise? Like, yes and no.
Right.
And so moving forward, let's just talk about, I guess, the ideas of healing, self-healing. If you can imagine that your body is a chemical making machine, it's not really hard to imagine because your body actually is a chemical making machine. Let's talk about the first process of the thought. So we're physical humans, we have thoughts. Whenever you have a thought, let's say I'm on the bus, and as I'm on the bus, I'm watching a fight break out. Now we're creating electrical synapses in our head that is going to determine how we view that fight and how we perceive what's happening with that fight. We're even like maybe even taking sides based on what we see. And so ideally, you have the ability to be objective and understand that that fight is not subjectively happening to you, but you still have a whole concept that you're building in your mind. So technically, you're taking an experience that may be complete trauma for someone, and you're creating a slight variation of that trauma within yourself to actually perceive what it is that's happening. Now, just to do that, you have to have chemicals that sodium and potassium interact. And as they cross each other, they create electromagnetic waves because one's positive and one's negative. So it creates a spark within your brain. And then that spark is then transmuted to another neuron that tells you, oh, remember that one time you saw someone get into a fight and they were helpless? And then that neuron starts to put that into this now new situation and say, oh, well now, okay, now shoot it back over there. You remember that time you was hit? And then that information is then relayed back over. And so you're creating this intricate highway of information in your head, just the nanoseconds of you just watching one thing. Now that's the thought. Now think about how many thoughts we have that are subjective, that we to ourselves while we're walking down the street. Like if you do see someone and like, oh, she thinks she's cute. Like, why'd you even have that thought? Like, what does it even matter? You obviously are the one that thought she was cute, because if you didn't, you wouldn't have responded to how cute she actually was. And then you judge it and you make it about you, and then you inner reflect, and then you cause self-sabotage because now you're saying that that person is not so cute, and screw them because now they're making me feel a little insecure inside, and I wish I was as good as that person. And so
it's almost like we ingest all things that that seem separated from us, and we welcome every experience inside. And if we don't have filters, then all of these external experiences become our own. Wow.
That's exactly it. I mean, and if you think about it on a vibratory level, if we're all just putting out like pulses of spheres in all directions, then you're receiving that information from that person. But what we don't realize is that it's us and our perception of that situation. And I just use the person because normally it's so triggering for people. But it can be any circumstance. It can be anything. It can be a document at work that you're looking at. You can be reading something and judge somebody. It can be any idea. But you're taking in information and you're basing it off a reality that solely exists in your mind. And a lot of times, because like you just said, we don't have the filter. We can't say, oh, that's over here. Oh, I do like that. Why am I pretending I don't? Like I don't see it. And so I had to come up with that conclusion. Excuse me. I would say, oh, in my head, and this is me being vulnerable because I just recently told my partner this too. And I was like, you know what? For the longest time, I would see an attractive man and immediately in my head say, oh, Stephanie would totally feel that dude. And I didn't know where the hell that was coming from, but I knew it instantaneously caused me triggers. Like I felt immediately like emasculated and wanted to just like get aggressive and act like hella macho. But when I went through my feminine mind and I went through my feminine side and started to recognize like, yeah, that has nothing to do with Stephanie, homie. You actually think that dude is really attractive. And you should acknowledge that.
Right. Just acknowledge.
Now you're lying to yourself, putting Stephanie in the place. And now you're mad at Stephanie's invisible self. You mentioned this dude. And I'm like, wow, what else do I do that with?
Very interesting observation. Wow. Yeah, so you just created two Stephanie and homeboy now become this external conflict that you created by not acknowledging your own shit.
Exactly. And so that's just a part of the thought healing. Like, you really got to pay attention to those thoughts and where they're really coming from and how you're perceiving them. And that was one of the most challenging parts for me. It took me like 2 years of going through just like questioning, like, oh, where'd that thought come from? Oh, I feel you, ego. I'm with you on that. I hear you. You almost got me on that one. But where'd that come from though? Like, what do I really feel behind that thought? And so really getting into thoughts helps you to understand that everything that you're thinking is directly affecting your chemistry. And the chemistry is your health. It's your sustainability.
Wow, it's just that simple. And this is just the beginning. These are foundational building blocks on self-awareness to even get to the healing part in the first place.
Yeah, you can't even self-heal. And for me, even people like, well, are you self-healing? And I'm like, yeah, actively. But am I healed? No. Why? Because I can't cut myself and then tell the cells to regenerate right now. That's why. He's like, but that's impossible. I'm like, no, I've actually seen somebody do it. I've seen shaman perform shit where I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, what? How did you cut the person with no blood? And then go like this. And then there was no cut. Like, what? I'm done. I got to leave and think about that for a minute. It blew my mind. And it showed me that, like, oh, we have no idea what we're doing. But because I've seen it and because I know it, now I'm like, oh, so I can do that? Okay. That's cool. And it gets me excited. But at the same time, you have to understand that you have to surrender to all things. And this is where the true self-healing comes in. I burned myself the other day and I'm like, take it, embrace it, tell the cells to do exactly what they need to do. Did it heal the way I wanted it to? No, because instantly it would have just not blistered and it would have just went, done. But it had to go through the inflammation process. It had to have the blister because that's the level of consciousness that me and my body have right now.
Wow. So you're saying even the process, there's a exact alignment between your level of consciousness of self and the process that the body goes through. So there are some people who are at a level of consciousness where they can bypass certain processes because they've elevated.
They don't bypass it at all. They just speed it up.
So the process remains the same. It's okay. It's accelerated.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's like a vitamin C shot, like 1,000 milligrams. Like, your body is going to speed up its immune system process. And it's going to heal itself faster because you just have more tools, you have more fluid. But also what the shaman does and what the consciousness does, and this is to marry those two ideas together. The consciousness is, again, working with the elements, and the elements have no relevancy of time. And so they're inside of the atom, making the atom do the atom stuff. So if your consciousness is faster, or if your consciousness is more aware, then you're just speeding things up to a pace that to you still may even feel the whole process. But to the rest of the world, in our time frame, we're like, oh, how'd it happen so fast?
That's magic. Right.
Exactly. And so really just diving into the whole idea that, for one, we are where we are. And you're not going to just suddenly like step 2 steps up. It's not going to happen. You have to gradually get yourself to a place of wisdom, like the question was asked. And first is the thoughts. No lie. Like, if you cannot get past your thoughts and if you're not aware of the thoughts you're having, then game over. Checkmate.
And a lot of people check out there.
That's exactly where they check. They can't even fathom taking steps beyond that because it's so painful. And they don't even recognize that it's painful. They just know the immediate discomfort that shuts down. It's like shutdown. And I experience that a lot whenever I feel that I'm being attacked based on some stuff that happens in the past. I'm like, they want to answer that, just shutting down. Like, oh, so you don't got nothing to say? And I'm like, no. But in myself, I know that I'm shutting down and I have a lot to say. I just don't have the space to say it right now because it'll be so angry that it'll come out in ways that aren't productive for a healthy conversation. So rather than being like, I just sit with it and just be like, let me think about my actions in that, because my actions in that is what I'm really shutting down to. And I need to own up to that. And that kind of sucks for me. So I need to just process that real quick and then own it. Like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, that was not okay. Damn, my bad. Thank you for being transparent. It's like, but it's thoughts. Going back to the thoughts. If you don't have the thoughts together,
Yeah.
then you can't go anywhere.
Okay. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. There was a really good book. It's called The Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life. Mm-hmm. It is a book based on sacred geometry, the Egyptians, a lot of the stuff that the Egyptians knew. But it led me to some information about my heritage, the Mayan civilization, that then led me to another piece of contemporary American literature. What was an audio tape? It was by Earl Nightingale called Men Don't Think. And he says, one thing about man is that we don't think. We just conform.
Wow.
That's the downfall of each soul, is conformity. Because now you're just going with what everybody else is doing and you're not having your own thoughts. And I just sat with that. I listened to that thing every night, every day on repeat. And that first part just used to always just like, yo, men don't think, we just conform. I'm like,
that's mind blowing. That is because even as you're saying that, I'm seeing like one big brain with just its own thing, and us being the waves and frequencies that are just following the highways or being herded like cattle, being shepherded through a bigger brain, more so than, again, taking that moment of being that purple cow and just saying, peace out. I'm kind of like off this farm and I'm doing the whole thing over here.
Exactly. But it's funny because to sidebar that, the people who are in charge of this big brain, they had all this information because they stole it from the ancient libraries. And that's why they course our societies to think this way, because they know that they don't have to go directly to you. They just have to influence you. And that's how we get into this conformity bit. But Earl Nightingale just talks about how when a man conforms, he's not using parts of his brain that allow him to be at his greatest. Mm-hmm. He's not being the creator. He's just following whatever is told to him. He's not asking vital questions, and he's not asking like, why? And so that was my first platform, was what the hell am I thinking? Because he just said that I don't think and I'm conforming. So maybe I should start thinking about some of the ways that I think I may have conformed. Well, no, not I think, that I have conformed. And that's what, for me, the gender role stuff was the first, like, oh, I'm a male. What have I done because I'm a male? And what do I do because I'm a male that is okay, but really not okay? And so finding these small little tidbits was my journey. I was like, okay, these are where my thoughts are aligned. These are the things I'm constantly thinking about. These are the things I'm constantly worried about. So now, once I went through that journey of questioning, like, oh, why'd you think that? Oh, that's cool. I don't like that thought. Oh, that was a great thought. Or, you know what? I really enjoy how you talked to yourself that day, Omar. Like, that was good. Like, really finding where my thoughts were. And to be honest, my thoughts were murderous. They were very dangerous and violent and very satanic, if you want to use that word, even though I don't believe in Satan or the devil. They were very dark. And they were dark for a lot of reasons. Because, I lived a very dark life back in my past. And I have some dark things in my past lives that I've just recently started to understand. But Um, but I couldn't continue thinking this way. Like it was not healthy for my consciousness, and it didn't make me feel good whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I needed to, for one, start with my thoughts. And I didn't know these tools like at the time. I was just following the guides and the ancestors. And that's something we can get into a little later as well. But
do you feel that these thoughts are being pulled from the subconscious mind, being pulled to the front of the mind so that you can acknowledge or hear them in a way to confront them? Like, are they just coming out of this pool of just subconscious literalism of how you're being triggered by your external world and then being brought to the forefront? And then you're kind of like, just like, because I hear you keep asking, well, where did that come from?
yeah.
And most likely it's probably come from that subconscious bank of
Yeah.
thought.
Well, it's both. It's both the subconscious and the conscious. You know, subconsciously, the things that I would think, like thoughts that would come subconsciously, they really wouldn't be thoughts, but feelings.
Yes, yes, the subconscious speaks through feelings.
And so those feelings would come and then create a thought.
Mm-hmm.
But the thoughts I felt, especially that were so vigorously out of control, it was all ego programming. I would just, it was easier to think these thoughts because this is the stuff I've been exposed to. I've been constantly seeing death. I've been constantly seeing murder. I even exposed myself to it by watching videos of murder and death for like a lot. And so I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I programmed myself to think about this stuff. Now I have no absolute control over it. So I had to dial back and forgive that part of myself because that's the other part we're going to talk about. Once you start to recognize the thoughts, once you start to recognize that you're having these chaotic, uneasy thoughts that are causing you distress, they're causing you to be unsettled, the next phase is to really understand how to forgive yourself and understand that those thoughts are just your systems trying to protect itself.
Yeah, the ego's job is to protect itself. That
Yeah.
is ultimately the ego's job. And so if the ego has to do that through lies, deceit, insecurity, through fear, it really thinks that it is protecting itself.
Well, it is protecting itself.
Yes, itself.
I had this really great connection one day is learning that the ego is the sympathetic nervous system wired in your brain because the sympathetic nervous system is solely based on fear and danger.
Mm-hmm.
Also based on excitement. You can have distress or eustress, and distress is danger, fear. Eustress is excitement, but they both lie within the sympathetic nervous system. And I'm like, yo, that's some total ego shit. Like, what? That's all ego. Fear and excitement, like what? Okay.
Because they both feel the same. Fear and excitement feel the same.
They really feel the same.
Get forked off in two different directions based on how you process it.
And it's literally the same hormone. It's cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine, oxytocin, and a lot of other little tiny hormones that play small parts, but it's all the same system. And so based on how you view something, like there's a good story I like to give. There's a spider in a room, two people. They both walk in. One's deathly afraid. One wants to put the spider on his face. What's the problem? You're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's not the spider. It's the perception. Spider has nothing to do with anything. Spider just being a spider. The person's viewpoint, like that person's literally going to have a panic attack. And this person's going to have an excitement. But they're literally releasing the same hormones. Mm-hmm. It's just their perception of what they see is completely different.
Wow.
So therefore, they see two different things.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to the sympathetic nervous system being the ego, the reason I say it's the ego is because it literally needs to survive. And your ego is the same thing. It needs to keep you alive. If it wasn't for your ego, you would not know to run away from a lion that looks hungry chasing you. Like, you'd be like, oh, why is that lion running towards me? Like, it's too many questions, homie. Go. Right. And so the ego gets you out of danger, and that's its whole job. And so over time, we've developed this consciousness that becomes our ego. So now I'm suddenly Omar. And Omar has all these things that he's been through. And Omar feels a certain way about certain types of people. And Omar may have not had the certain type of experience in freedom or love or hate pushed towards him.
Mm-hmm.
So now I collect this like whole story that is now a neurological process in my brain. And it's holding together like a bunch of webs, you know,
Yeah.
your brain. It literally looks like a bunch of electrical webs tethered together. And it's taken from all these different parts of your brain, the hypothalamus, the cortex, the all these parts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to get into the names, but it's holding you together. And so when the ego starts to change any one of those little webs, it's like, oh, instability. What's happening? There's stuff shaky over there. Do we got something? It's like, no, it's a new belief. And if it doesn't work with the program, then the ego literally thinks it's dying. So it protects it by making you feel that you're crazy.
Right, right.
And that's the other part of the thought. And so
I wrote down, it's not the ego's job to tell you how to process what it's giving.
Facts.
It's that the I am part of you takes over now. So again, it's that perception based responsibility that we have. So a lot of time we just blame the ego. Oh, it's the ego or it's your ego, but the ego is just giving off what it gives off, and it's up to you to take that and process it. So again, respect the processes.
But the fun part is everything you're saying. I hope it really reaches people, because it's about like accepting that you are the one that created your ego to even believe that idea, because we haven't gotten to the soul part of things where you chose to be this person. You chose to go through these experiences so that you can actually have some type of growth in your soul. So that's a whole nother thing, but that acceptance ties right into the forgiveness aspect.
Yeah.
So once you can relay and understand your thoughts, you got to start forgiving it. You got to be like, you know what? I forgive you for having that much hate, or I forgive the people that showed me that that was real. I forgive the world for teaching me that I should hate myself. Like, I forgive all of you. And whenever you start to forgive, you start to untether things.
Wow.
That's not only like, that doesn't happen in your mind, that happens in your heart.
Wow. Forgiveness happens in your heart. So the untethering happens, or cutting cords or bindings.
Cutting cords.
That happens in your heart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because the heart is running the show. That's where the subconscious mind lives. That's where the inner child lies. And that's where all these invisible strings that we have with people are tethered to. Now let's think about this. Anybody who's ever given you a sensation within your chest, whether that was immense pain where you clutched and grabbed your heart, or it was absolute love where you wanted to radiate and shine and give them a big hug, you created an instant link. I like to see them as golden little sparkly lines that are tethered to that person. And you got them going in all directions.
Whoa. Wait a second there, because we get a lot of questions about, I'm moving on with my development, and I have a lot of cords connected to these toxic people in my family, lovers in the past, right? So you're saying that because we create these tethers from the heart, if we think back with our heart space and decisions made and relationships made through that space, we've automatically created a link and tether, even if we don't realize it. So any person that has made us feel from that part, whether it's pain or pleasure, it's still a tether created. That is like mind-blowing, because now I feel like with that information, people can actually see their cords now.
Well, that's the thing. If you can't see it, then who are you going to know how to forgive, and how are you going to know how to forgive them? And so being able to see through your heart and not through your mind, because your mind is never going to reveal it. Like, what? No. Your mind is so busy trying to distract you from it that it's giving you all these thousands of thoughts. all these crazy ideas that are coming from all these directions. Like your mind don't want you to see nothing. It's like, you're gonna, you know what, let's throw last week's curveball. Or how about that one time you smelled perfume that reminded you of a hot dog? Like, let's just throw that in the mix. It's like, wait, where did that thought come from? That was weird. But it really distracts you. And it distracts you because it doesn't want to reprogram. But the heart is like, hello. The heart is subtle. It's not going to be loud like the mind. It's going to be like that small whisper that is trusting.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in order to literally hear it, you have to feel it. And so, that's when you can find who you've tethered to. And so, for me, going inside of my heart with meditation and asking you shall receive, it's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Who do I still have grudges with that is holding me down? And some stuff came up, like this was years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, but some stuff came up about some friends who I had who one night did like a shitload of cocaine, and this whole situation happened with the cops and me having to leave with the car. But I come back and suddenly me and these dudes are fighting, and it was just like a whole thing. And I'm like, what the? And I was like, wow, I didn't even think that I had any issues with those dudes anymore. And it was like, nah, you felt betrayed because they tried to fight you when you were the one that actually had to protect them. You took their car so that they wouldn't get in trouble, and you come back and then they tried to fight you because they would just cope the fuck out. They didn't even know what the hell was going on. And I was like, wow, I never even thought about that. But while I'm like thinking about it, my heart's beating fast. I'm mad. Like it's almost as if I was in the fight again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh wow, I need to let that go.
Oh, yes.
And so I started sending love to them. And I started remembering times after that where they tried to apologize to me. And I was like, yeah, whatever. When I could have just let it go then and cut that tie. But obviously, I needed to hold on to that tie so that I can remember, like, yo, I still have that. And then I chose to let it go. When I chose to let it go, I felt it. Like, I literally felt in my heart a release. And I was like, oh shit, you can actually feel the release. That's crazy. Why didn't anyone ever say that? You can actually feel your heart releasing trauma. And it literally, it feels like, how can I explain it? It feels like one of those little tiny, like, air bubble packages. Like if you just take one, like pop it, it feels like that. It's like just, whoop, like a little release. And now you got a little bit more expansion in your chest. I can breathe more now. Like, oh, I feel lighter. This is crazy. Can I do a backflip right now? Like, but forgiveness is key. And if you can't find forgiveness, then once again, game over. See how this is levels. If you can't get past the thoughts, game over. Once you get past the thoughts, you get to the level of forgiveness. If you can't let go, game over.
Game over. So that's the second level.
So that's it. That's it. We ain't even far. But I mean, we're literally not. It's like so many more steps. But
right. But those, I can see just as being a human being why those first two steps seem impossible.
They kind of are whenever you really think about it. Like whenever you think about it from the aspect of the tools we have, absolutely impossible. What are you talking about? You want me to just like stop my thoughts? And you want me to forgive people that I keep having really terrible thoughts about? What are you talking about? And it's not even the people that I'm actually really mad at, which are my parents and my siblings and the people that raised me and treated me bad, that I'm actually reflecting through the people that I see at work. Like, it's too much complexity for us to even digest it.
Someone asked, if you forgive, do you have to forget? Really good question. Forgiving and forgetting, that other part.
Well, that's the thing. Everyone struggles with, can you forget? Yes and no. I don't know how to put this one because it's such a sensitive topic. I have to kind of switch into another mode right now. Forgiveness is being able to see the things that are uncomfortable and allow them to be exactly what they are.
Okay.
Because we come from the infinite wisdom of the universe, you cannot ever forget anything, but you can choose to look away. And there's a really good parable. There was a man who was a magician, and then there was a man who was a Catholic priest. And so the magician goes up to the priest and he says, I come for forgiveness. I'm looking to find truth. And the Catholic priest actually has a negative response to him and feels a little aggressive. And he's like, well, your truth is not our truth if you don't find it through Christ. And he's like, okay, well, I'll seek Christ if that's what you want. He's like, oh yeah, you think you can seek Christ? Then you ask Christ what I did that was so bad in seminary school, and you come back with me with the answer. And so the guy, he goes, he seeks Christ, comes back, and the guy's like, so did you talk to Christ? He's like, yeah, I spoke with Christ. He's like, so what did Christ tell you that I did that was so bad in seminary school? He says, I forgot. And that shit hit me so hard because I was like, wow. He didn't have to forget. He chose to forget. And forgiveness means that you don't see it the same. Like when you choose to forgive someone, you have a completely different viewpoint of the action that was done to you.
Yeah.
See it from a lens that is tarnished. You see it from a lens of purity. And you see it from a lens of love. Therefore, you won't forget it because it happened. But how you choose to see it, going back to perception, is a whole different thing. Like Christ forgot, not for the simple sake of he didn't know. He was like, oh, I just don't know. No, he knew. He forgot because that's how much he loves you. And that's how much love there is. That why are we focused on that? I love you so much that you can hang me on the cross if that's what people, want to go with. And I'll forgive that and I'll forget it. And I'll pretend like right now, right here, is completely new. And that's the thing. We keep trying to make the past the present. So therefore, your idea of forgetting becomes warped. You're forgetting because you're trying to redo the past. It's like, no, I can't forget because I can't change the past. It's like, yeah, but if you forgive it and if you have so much love within your heart, then you don't even think about it anymore. If you choose to like, I want to think about that shit, yeah, it'll come up. But you just don't think about it anymore. Like, think about it. You have children. Something your child has done to you that made you feel a way, you don't remember anymore because you love them literally so much. Like you'll see them tomorrow, or like let's say something happened to them, and you like, so glad you're safe.
Yeah.
They did from that point on, they could have slapped you in your face, rubbed shit on your forehead, and peed in your pillow. But instantly, all that is gone because you are so happy that they're safe because you love them so much. And so that's how forgiveness versus
that's powerful.
Forgiveness.
Yeah.
Forgetfulness. And that's a hard one because like even for me to like talk about that, I had to go into my heart. I had to go into the ether because that's not something that, any word that is said could trigger a whole nother thing and make it like, oh, shit, don't forget. Oh, but it's so sensitive and it's so vital. You have to, unfortunately, forgive, but it is fortunate. I'm sorry, don't say that. You have to fortunately forgive, which helps you to understand that love is so powerful that it forgets.
Amazing.
It is. My heart's all open now. Whew. Check it out.
So we have thoughts, forgiveness, and forgetfulness, right? Chosen forgetfulness. Now, what's next?
Elements.
Elements.
The elements and the ancestors. So the reason that we are all shamans and magi, going back to you are a chemical making machine. Your whole body is the alchemist. So there's a picture that it's like the alchemist library, pretty much. It's a picture of the alchemist in his room, in his study, and he's always kneeling on the altar, surrendering completely to everything. And then around the room, you see all these tools. You see pillars, you see writing, you see all this stuff. And all the stuff is the inside of our body. And most people think that it's like, oh, he's in a room with like a table. Nah, homie, the table represents his solidity and his planning. And if you see on the table, he has all types of instruments to draw and to calculate and to make circles and squares because he's trying to figure out who he is in his mind. And so the picture is just a representation of our body. And so once we get into understanding that everything in our body is a tool to show us where we are. So let's just go through just the chakras alone. The chakra system is a system that is made from ratios like music. So all the energies conform in a specific part where they cross over, you know, the vibrations are moving in all directions. And whenever they cross over, it's a specific point. And in that vibration is a color because color is a vibration. And it's in the color of the rainbow from the root chakra all the way to the violet chakra, the crown. So it goes from red to orange, to yellow, to green, to sky blue, to indigo blue, and to purple. Exact rainbow. Now, that's just a system. That system is connected to your endocrine system. Your endocrine system is your hormones, your physical immunity system. And so if you have any type of mental imbalances, it's going to affect the chakras. And then the chakras are going to affect the hormones. And then the hormones are going to affect the body. And so you're the alchemist. You're creating alchemy by the things that you're thinking and feeling. So in order to sustain our health, we have to, going back to the thoughts, forgiving, and then understanding how to move through the elements. Like, let's say if you do have a feeling that's uncomfortable, let's say, oh, why? And then sit in it. Don't try to avoid it. Don't try to be comfortable. Like everybody's like, oh, I don't like this discomfort and this dis-ease. And dis-ease eventually turns into disease.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, because we don't feel the discomfort, it rests in our body. And once again, we're talking about digesting the information. And so let's say, just to use me as a reference, the other day I had an experience with some monetary stuff that happened. And I suddenly had all these thoughts come up about like this and that. And I'm trying to like compartmentalize finances and this and that. And I'm like, yo, slow down. What triggered this? And it was like, oh, what triggered it was I haven't been able to find the venue that I want yet for this event series that I'm looking to do. And I know that this event series is going to be something dope. But the place that I did find it, I can't charge people. Now that kind of goes back on my plan. Now I got to revamp. And then I went into this whole like situation.
Yeah.
But then I had to go back and say, okay, that's cool. How did you feel about that? I'm like, oh, well, I kind of felt inadequate because I didn't have the space and I don't necessarily have the funds to give it to the space. And I'm looking at spaces with the lowest budget But now I'm setting a bar for myself to feel inadequate. And if I can't reach in between this invisible bullshit line, then all of a sudden I feel like I don't have it and like, oh no. And I'm having a little bit of self-doubt. And so I had to rest in that feeling. This was like 3 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm resting in this feeling now, like, okay, I feel a little broke, I guess. Even though I'm not broke, I'm just mentally setting myself up for failure. And I'm like, okay, so how about we imagine that we feel good and that we do have a location? And so I started to see what that feels like. Let's walk down the street. What does it feel like to be in that feeling? And then that's when the alchemy started to happen. I can feel the chemicals change with each step and with each thought, like, yo, oh, what if it's possible that you get it? What if it's possible that you get to the next block and suddenly you get a text and someone has a space? It's possible. And so I started to create this better feeling in my body. And then literally 2 blocks later, I get a text from a friend saying, yo, let's work together. I got some spaces. I get a text from Ty. Yo, hit me up. I got some ideas about that space you were looking for. And I'm like, awesome.
That's exactly how it works.
It is.
Yes.
It is. But I had to become the alchemist in that moment. I had to know that I'm creating this reality through the thoughts that I had before, which are not true. But yet I started to run with them as I walked down the street, and now I'm feeling from them. And now I've compartmentalized the feeling and I've made it something tangible in my life. And now here I am feeling inadequate based on all these small little intricacies. And by changing my mindset within 6 blocks allowed me to literally create a new reality that I walked into, because the old reality still exists where old Omar is like upset and didn't get that text. That reality is happening as we speak. I just moved into one vibrationally.
Yes.
It matched my feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Not my thoughts. It matched my feeling. And so playing with the alchemy of your body is playing with the elements. But the only way you can understand that is by knowing what the elements do. Now let's go through the first one, air. Air is the first element.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's not. It's just this one part that we start with. I don't even know if this is true yet, but I'm still trying to understand it for myself.
It depends on which vibrations you're sequencing in them, because some start with the quicker vibrationally, some start with the slower. Like in tarot, they start with the slower into the quicker. So it all depends on which sequence vibrationally you're starting with.
Exactly. And so in the formalities of alchemy, there's air, which creates movement. But for me, I'm like, okay, but what about space? Because didn't there have to be space first? And isn't that technically a type of element? Like there had to be some type of
element, right?
Yeah, like there had to be space in order for the idea to come, for consciousness to even identify.
Yeah.
How could it move with no space? And that part right there alone, I'm like, maybe that's one of the key things that we're missing. And maybe that's one of the secrets that is not really revealed to us yet, because if we knew it, then we'd blow ourselves up. But with that said, air itself is about movement. And so whenever you find yourself in an airy movement, it's usually your mind. Think about how much your mind moves.
Mm-hmm.
The element of air is swifting through the mind all the time. It's like your thoughts can be over here, then whoosh, then over here, and then whoosh, and it's all like this. And then you having all these thoughts that make no sense whatsoever, because the mind is made to move. It's made to be airy. It's made to be lofty. And then whenever you be able to control the air and influence the air, it then creates temperature, which creates the fire. And so from the fire, you have to understand that you have cool and you have hot. You have degrees in which you can feel things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not literally a fire, which most people think. They see like burn, like, I'm going to destroy everything.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, that's what they resonate with just the fire element, just
Yeah.
thinking fire, literally.
It's really just about how you're feeling. Like, are you cool or are you hot? Which
Mm.
one are you? And you are the only judge. Like, you know how to say, you know what? I'm hot. And if you're hot and you're saying you're cool, you know damn well you're lying to yourself.
Right.
You know you're lying. I don't have to sit here and try to be like, you're lying. Like, yeah, you're right. But from there, you create the temperature. And from the mixture of air and water, you begin to create emotion and flow and this vitality of sustenance. And so through the water, you become emotional. And the water is through your sexuality. Oh, I'm sorry. The fire is in your heart. It's your passion. It's the things that you feel like
Mm.
deeply about within your system. It's like if you want to feel
Spark
fire
the beat.
energy, yeah, exactly.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, exactly. You don't feel fire in your head. Like, when was the last time you felt hot in the head? Like, nah, you just it was this, it was all this, it was the passion from your heart. And so that fire is created there in your body. Now, whenever we talk about the water and the flow of water, that's all emotional, and that's all the hips and the guts and their sexuality. And
Mhm.
so understanding yourself through these ideas of like, who am I? How do I identify sexually is really a large issue for people with focusing on water. And again, not physical water. It's
Yeah.
just emotion. It's complete emotion, raw emotion, movement. Your emotions can one day be solid, like an ice block, or your emotions could be like liquidy, moving whatever. Or one day they can just evaporate into gas. Like, your emotions can be all over the place. But the identity is to understand where you are in those emotions. And the earth is transmuted through that, but that's your physical body. That's the whole body. Your whole body is the earth because that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can comprehend how to understand your elements of your mind through the air, and then understand how you're coming through passion and through the fire of your heart, and then knowing how that feels as you translate that passion into emotion within the gut and within the hips, and then allowing your body to soak up all that information through the kundalini is why most people feel it, and then letting it spread to your feet and letting it be how you walk and letting it be in your hands and letting it be how you deal with things and how you create, and let it come out of your mouth and how you talk, and let it be about the things that you hear. You have to combine these elements in order to really self-heal. And I just have to preference because I just realized that this is some fast stuff, FYI, guys. So take each element at a time. Like, don't try to don't try to find everything at once. And ah, man, um, I preference you. Please listen to this. Do not ask a question that you are not ready to hear the answer of. Because whenever you're playing with alchemy, if
Mm.
you ask a question that your consciousness is not ready to handle, you will feel like you're going insane for like 3 weeks.
Wow. Yeah, I that. That is
Yeah,
absolutely.
and if you've ever been in there where you questioned something and then you went through a
Oh, you
process.
gotta find something to hold on
Yeah,
to.
yeah, you do.
Where do I find
But that's the ego. That's the ego breaking itself apart. So it's like,
it?
and you literally feel insane because a part of you is dying and
Mm.
becoming something new. And a lot of times the world will never accept that. Like, the world would never be ready to be like, oh, let me hear what you got to say. Like, come on, let it out. No, they're like, nah, that's weird. You're weird.
Mm-hmm.
And then anybody you talk to is condemning you, telling you do just as crazy as you feel. So,
So do you feel that we go through many ego deaths? Like
mm-hmm.
we don't have the same ego as we did 10 years ago even. It's like,
You
so when
always
we
go
go
through
through
it.
ego deaths in that transition, in that nanosecond of self, it can feel like you're going a little insane because everything is breaking apart. So this is so good because there are many of us who go through those things and we feel like something's wrong, or we've turned the wrong corner. We need to find our way back.
Yep.
But what you're saying is that it's an actual transition. So let it happen. But
Yep.
in that process, you know, stand clear and be aware and get through it.
Yep. And that's where you have to find help. You have to find help. You cannot rely on your ego whatsoever. And the help that you need is God, if that's what you want to call it. I don't say God, I use source. You gotta ask the source. You gotta ask the thing that created all things for assistance. You will never be able to do it alone. Get that out of your mind. I thought that for a long time, like, yo, now I got this. I can do this. Yeah. And I realized how much torment I caused myself, because if I would have just surrendered to the thing that created all this, it would have been so much easier. And also your ancestors. Ancestors are like cheerleaders, always walking behind you about 12 feet above your head, like rooting you on, like, come on, we got this. You can cleanse all of our DNA. You can heal all of our lineages. You can heal the time where 500 years ago, your ancestor was getting beaten and went into a corner and didn't tell nobody. You can heal that. You can heal all these things. And so radically using the tools like source and your ancestors will help you to understand that you are not crazy, because you absolutely will feel that you're going insane. And that's one of the things about most shamans and maggies and witches and warlocks. Like, there's a time where people be like, oh, they crazy. Like, you should have heard how they was muttering on the streets. And it's like, yo.
Oh, yeah. That's what happened to me when I was in Hawaii before the new year. Hawaii started speaking to me. Ancestors were speaking to me. And I had like 2 days of like psychosis. Like, I went into a psychosis and Mike was just like, you got to chill. I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was dying.
Yeah.
But the ancestors guided me through with the story of the land and of the elements, and it carried me through. And I left like feeling so powerful.
Yep. And I'm so glad that you said it. No, it's great, because the heart chakra of the earth now resides in Hawaii. And
really? Makes sense.
What you were feeling is what the earth feels that we're doing to her. And you connected with that source and that power. And
that was potent.
I know. That's beautiful. But also, you know, that's you must have some roots there. Like, you've had some past lives there, most likely, and you probably experienced exactly that too. And so, yeah, that's awesome. I love that. But going back to following the ancestors, you know, if we don't find refuge within our ancestors and within the source, then there's really no answer. Because what is the true Trinity is you knowing who you are, you knowing that everything that was created in the entire universe lives within you, and you are not separate from this. You unidentifying with your ego, which is your first name and the person you want to be and believe you are, letting all that stuff go, like letting it just dissipate, and knowing that like tomorrow I may be somebody else.
Man, it's so crazy, Omar, because even in relationships and marriages and children, our egos bind ourselves to other egos. And when we change, egotistically change, literally a different person with a binding contract with a person that you were before, that you were with before in your old self. So now you have to either reinvent the relationship and reintroduce, or completely just cut it off and kind of like go be your other self that you've grown into. It's insane. And I feel like a lot of people are going through these changes because it's like a force that's coming in through so many different avenues for people to like face.
Oh yeah, and relationships is a
whole other conversation. Yes.
Be a 4-hour talk. but real talk on what you just stated, like knowing how to like bring all that stuff home and helping yourself identify with the one true fact, which is that I'm experiencing this and this is how I feel. And then allowing yourself to feel it. Like we avoid feelings because they hurt, but you can't ever refine the gold if you don't burn it. Like it has to be burned. You have to take it through the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And fire burns, man. Fire hurts. Like, but it also purifies you and it makes you see what is untrue.
Mm.
And so whenever you purify, whenever you're going through these feelings, the one thing that you must realize, and this is why connecting with the source and your ancestors is so vital, is you realize that all that stuff is not true. It's an illusion. It's a grand illusion. And you're the creator of this whole illusion. It's literally not happening anywhere else in the entire universe, from galaxy to stars, on the exact opposite point of where we physically are today. It's not happening. It's only happening in your mind and in your heart. So therefore, you are an intricate part of the creation of that one thing that you're focused on. And so understanding that it's in a complete illusion is helping yourself to feel the feelings. Because once you feel it, and once you say, okay, where does that come from? And then you're like, oh, it comes from here, this and that and this. And then you forgive it, you realize that it's nothing at all.
In fact, what about feelings? Because this has been popping up from people as well. This whole wrong or right idea when it comes to feeling. So what if sometimes the feeling feels wrong? It feels wrong. It's like you beat yourself up or you judge yourself because of the feeling that you're having. Yep. And then you just either look away, suppress, which is really suppressing it.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you get through those feelings of wrongness through raw, honest feeling of self? Because we were having a conversation about this the other day.
Yeah. That also is forgiveness, because going back to the spider,
mm-hmm.
Wrong? Is it?
Is it wrong?
I mean, really, like, is it?
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, who says so? Who made it wrong?
Who says
who
so?
Gave you a degree in which this is wrong and this isn't? And then what did they know? And who taught you, and who taught them to know that?
Okay.
And so whenever you start breaking down and asking why, once again, the alchemist digests information. It digests all the knowledge. So you can't just pick like, oh, well, I'm going to digest all this over here, but this uncomfortableness, I'm just going to put that over there. And it's like, no, you got to be able to digest happiness and sadness. Mm-hmm. And so, funny enough, I heard on this show, happiness is also an escape. And I'm like, damn, it's true.
Happiness is an escape?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it fucked me up. I was like, oh shit, he's right. Oh wow. Huh. I need to rethink about that.
Happiness is it's a very interesting way to explain an emotion, because it's not a permanent state, or it's not like a state of being. It's like a very temporary fix.
Super temporary.
Very temporary. Even if I tap into joy feels more like overarching.
Exactly. Happiness and joy are completely different. Mm-hmm. Happiness is, like you said, it's that moment to moment, like fulfillment and satisfaction.
Yeah.
Joy is a presence.
Got it. That's the difference.
I'm presently joyful. Period. Like, I'm not happy, son. Like, nah. but on the flip side of that, going back to just really being able to say that there's no such thing as wrong. Because again, when we find source and when we find ancestry, the yin and yang makes sense. It's black and white. It's light and darkness. And you have to have a little bit of darkness within the light for it to be complete. And you have to have a little bit of light within the darkness in order for it to be complete. And so together, there's really no such thing as right or wrong. It's just is. And once you can accept that, you realize that you're only causing, once again, your own ridicule, your own self-demise, because you are judging something that's a complete illusion.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
that still
Judgment.
to this day, that's actually one of the major things that's happening not only within myself, but I see it happening within my relationship, because I'm starting to break away from all these ideas and say, you know what? Just be happy. Just be
Mm-hmm.
you. And live your truth and live your fulfillment and do whatever is right for you every day, no matter how I feel about it. And me breaking that apart from myself, I still have visceral responses. You know, I'm still like, oh, well, you asked for this, so sit in it.
Right.
No, seriously, like sit in it
Yeah.
and accept it and realize that if you judge it and if you don't see it from yin and yang, then it controls you.
It
It
controls.
makes you react every single time. But as I begin to be able to put all that into one, I start to realize like, nah, nothing's real.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's real is the things that I'm focused on. Because I'm the
Absolutely.
creator.
100%.
And so, yeah, like, yeah, I guess that's the answer. Long-winded answer.
Yeah, yeah. No, that was great.
But I like to say the other two things. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there are many things, there are many
Yeah.
tools to self-healing, but obviously meditation, everyone, is one of them. And meditating with intention and meditating with curiosity is probably your best bet.
Mm-hmm.
So come with like finite questions. Be like, this is what I want to know. And then set a curiosity. You know, like you got to come with the heart of a child.
Yes.
The child has questions and is curious for the answer. It's the adult is like, I want to know this now, and it waits. I'm like, nah, don't expect anything. Like,
So let the inner child ask the question.
exactly. And once the inner child knows, well, once you can hear the inner child's question, you will find the answer. But you got to sit within yourself. And one of my favorite meditations is to just visualize me sitting with my inner child. Just like, what you want to do today, homie? Where you want to be? Sometimes we'll be sitting in darkness. Sometimes we'll be in a golden field that's like waist high. Sometimes we'll be on an asteroid watching the earth from afar. Sometimes we'll just be in my old playground back home. And I just sit and just imagine and feel. Again, I'm not trying to think. Like our imagination is so vital
It is.
that we imagine terrible stuff all the time. But we don't realize if we control our imagination, then we can really focus through meditation. And so rather than trying to count your breaths to 72, like just focus on the child that, or focus on how you feel. And once your thoughts start to go airy, be like, oh, I see you. It took
Yeah.
5 seconds for you to go airy. That's crazy. I can't even focus on 5 seconds. But that's cool. We're gonna work on it. And then go back to your breath. Go back to your feelings. It's always rerouting.
Rerouting back to your feelings.
Yep.
Basically.
Because
So you
your
get caught up in the mind, reroute to the heart. Get
yep.
caught up in the mind, reroute to the heart. But don't judge it. You're saying don't judge it when you reach your mind and you get swept away by the airy thoughts. Just reroute. And once you continuously do that, it becomes habitual and automatic.
Yep. I heard one of the quotes the other day in this alchemy lesson I was doing. It was very awesome, because the next thing I was going to say is going through dream therapy. Dream therapy is another way to really self-heal. Now, the guy was saying, he's like, you know, dreams and thoughts should be looked at objectively.
Dreams and thoughts should be looked at objectively.
Yeah. And take away any subjection that you have about these dreams. That way you can see it from afar, like hindsight, rather than like it's happening to you. And whenever you find that you take away all subjection and objection, you realize that you're just looking at a movie. Like I've been telling myself daily, and it's really been messing up my reality because whenever I lucid dream so much that I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, what's the difference?
Exactly.
And I've been telling myself there's no difference between the dream and now.
No.
And everything is like a dream. And I'll just be walking down the street looking like one of those crazy people talking about like everything is like the dream. Like that paper blowing by is just like in the dream. Or this guy walking by muttering is just like in the dream. Or me missing the train is just like in the dream. Like, what if there was another train that came just after that, just like in the dream? And what happens is, whenever you start to master that,
blend the reality together.
And then you start to like manifest really fast, and that.
Yeah, that fourth dimensional level of awareness takes you even higher.
5 dimension.
Exactly. Yep.
But and so using meditation and understanding that you should not judge it, like you were saying, is vital. And using your dreams as tools so that you can actually have some reference, because you dream about the things that you worry about daily.
That's what you dream about, what you worry most about daily.
Yep.
That reflects mostly in your dreams.
Yeah, like we even have the science to like watch people's dreams neurologically. Yeah. And we see like, oh, you dreaming about exactly what you went through today. But it's supposed to be used, like whenever you look at like animals and you study animals' dream state, there's something that happens in their brain that's different from ours. They dream about the stressors of that, but then they learn from it. And so when they wake up, they know how to do different. But we don't let shit go.
We let our dreams consume us instead. And when we get sucked into the nightmare.
Yeah, well, it's more we let our conscious reality consume us, where we're not using our dream state to actually acknowledge and heal and learn. We just block it out. But they study birds all the time. Like they wake up from their dreams, and their dreams are dreaming about their whistle. Like, oh, I need to perfect that whistle, son. And then it wakes up knowing how to do the whistle better. Like that's how we're supposed to dream. We're supposed to wake up knowing how to deal with the same situation that happened yesterday better. But instead of deciphering our dreams, we don't even remember that we had a dream. But we dream every night, every single. And so using your dreams as a tool is great. This last bit, I caution everyone because it is substance based. If you have any history of like issues with substances, whatever that may be, then this may not be for you. But for me, particularly microdosing. Microdosing things like mushrooms or DMT. And just to give you a background, dimethyltryptamine, DMT, is also known as the spirit molecule. It comes from your pineal gland, which is your third eye. It's the first base molecule of all hallucinogens. It's also released when you die. So people who have life after death experiences, they have so much DMT in their blood because they literally left their body.
Yeah.
Their soul was getting ready to escape. And so there's some connection between the other world and this chemical that helps us to see more. But when you understand it, the pineal gland, it's made to receive light in your eyes. So when you close your eyes, it senses, oh, there's not much light. Let's start producing melatonin. Let's start putting us down to rest. And then whenever you go into your sleep state, into REM sleep, DMT is released. So to connect with that part of yourself and to open up the third eye a little more and connect to other brains in your body, mushrooms, psilocybin, LSD, acid.
What about marijuana?
Yeah, marijuana's it's not the same. It's not hypertrophic. So it's not gonna click on that. THC and CBD, those are particular molecules. But if you ingest THC, then it goes through the liver and the liver attaches and then takes away something that actually makes it hypertrophic. And
Oh,
that's
okay.
sometimes whenever people eat edibles and
The
they eat too
edibles,
much,
right?
they have like a hallucination
Yeah.
because you're now tapping into another side of that chemical. But if you're
Okay.
smoking marijuana, it's not going to have the same effect.
Got it.
These particular molecules are what are used by shamans or what are used by the magi, what are used by alchemists because they understand that it's going to enlighten their consciousness. It's going to open up different parts of their brain that they have not tapped into yet. And the only way you can tap into them is through deep meditation and deep focus. So taking a substance, and I say microdosing specifically because microdosing is not tripping. Let me just preference that again. Whenever you're taking a full dose of something, you will most likely hallucinate and see some shit that you may not or want to see.
Ready for, yeah.
And so don't take this in recreation. Like I started taking hallucinogens when I was 17, and then I definitely did it recreationally. But it opened up such a part of myself that I started to realize that they were more than that. And it started, I would like come out of a trip, like learning more about the universe. I'm like, yo, why I know more about the universe then? Like, why did I find the mysteries of the universe between the dust particles and between the shadows of the light? Mm-hmm. Like, yo, what are you talking about, son? Like the mysteries of the universe are in between the blind, son. Like, you're crazy. I'm like, yes, I feel like I'm going crazy. But using these substances could help you get a perspective. And I say microdosing more so because that is a minuscule amount that will not take you to a point that you feel reality is different.
Yeah.
You just have more awareness on the inside of you. And psilocybin mushrooms and I guess ayahuasca have more of a body, visceral, emotional impact on you. And LSD, it's going to be more of the mind. And straight like DMT, not ayahuasca DMT, because that's a different form of DMT. Yeah. But if you find dimethyltryptamine and if you do it, like it's all third eye based. And so you're opening yourself up to a reality that once again, you should be intentional and you should definitely have a support group. Now, because I am the shaman and I've been doing this stuff for a while, I can say to myself, oh, I'm gonna take a little small microdose on a Tuesday. And I can go about my everyday life and be completely fine. But if you don't know the measurements, for one, because it's chemistry,
yeah,
do not mess up the measurements, that you can eventually you can take too much of a dose and then suddenly you at the office tripping acid. Like, don't do that. It's not smart. And so being in a confined space and finding a community of people that you can actually do this with. I know plenty of people who have ceremonies who are very trustworthy. It's either ayahuasca ceremonies or both ceremonies where it's ancestral. We're coming for a reason. It's not play. We're coming to find more out about ourselves so we can brighten and enlighten our consciousness.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's sacred. Like, it's not a game. And sometimes when people take and they're not ready, they either go insane or they have a little bit of psychosis that comes up because you just unlocked a part of your brain that you were not ready to take.
Right.
And so again, you have to be not only very intentional, but you have to be wise. The wise man always knows its limits.
The wise man always knows when, you know,
exactly.
It's not really about the how all the time. Sometimes it's really about the when, the timing of things. Yeah. Do you, before we get into a couple of questions, just one last thing that I wanted to ask. The steps that you provided were amazing. A lot of we can take it. We can take that's like a good 2 years worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Like practice, right?
And go.
And go. Are there any techniques that you can offer as far as like laying hands on body, cellular regeneration, type healing, just to kind of leave us with some things to do if you have anything to offer?
I would say the best thing is somatic movement.
Yes, I love that. I do it in the
Yeah,
shower all the time.
yeah, like cellular regeneration and focusing on your light body. Like you can try that, but that's like you got to have a lot of understanding to understand the intricate parts of how that works and belief. You have to completely believe that you can do that.
Yes.
So what you can do and what you will physically believe in is somatic movement. There's a thing called tapping. Like for anxiety, whenever you feel anxious, it's all right here. So tapping with your fingertips lightly like this, even like soft fist, or you just tap like so, and just tapping around your body. That's a way to do somatic movement. So what you're doing is you're actually moving the blood in the system within your body as you tap. And that's allowing the hormones to pass through and you digest them. Literally. You're literally passing by me doing this. I can actually feel it working right now because I'm like, oh, it's making me have to use the bathroom. And so connecting to that energy and that chemical response, and you will feel different. And if you breathe while you're doing it, but the key point to somatic therapy is changing your mind from what you were thinking about that pissed you off. Like you can't be tapping and be like, I'm mad, like, motherfuckers, like, I can't beat him. I can't wait till I see them next week. It's like, nah, homies, you can't do that. You have to let it go, take some deep breaths, and always go with where you feel it. Like, let's say if you feel neck tension, there it is, because your body knows. It's trying to tell you, this is what we're holding at. And let's say you feel tension in your left knee. Just go down there and tap above and around the knee, because that's where you feel a little bit off balance, because knees provide balance. If it's in your gut, then go to your gut. But for the most part, whenever you feel anything, it's most likely always going to be in your torso. So tapping your torso helps you to literally change from sympathetic nervous response to parasympathetic. And that's called somatic therapy. You're moving the somatic muscles, which is your literal physical muscle, to move stuff. And you can also do that through dancing.
I love that. Yep.
When you feel upset, put a song that you love on that's going to take you out of that mindset, and maybe even just go to the bathroom or something if you don't have the space to do so, and just start dancing, even if it's for like one song, not even the whole song, verse, hook, whatever, but just dance and move your body. And that movement is creating the flow. It's allowing things to be digested. It's allowing things to create movement. And the reason that works is because it's the system. I like to call this, it's somatic therapy, but I also like to call it be like the gazelle or be like the zebra. Because immediately when a zebra or a gazelle is chased by a lion, they're out, bam, book. Stress hormones, tension, they have to have it in order to run that fast. But once they're gone, and once the lion is not presently a threat, they shake and they tremble their entire body. And before, because we're stupid, we used to think, oh, they're scared. Look at those poor little gazelles trembling in fear. And that's where that word came from. They're trembling in fear. Nah, homie, they're actually trembling to remove fear.
Wow.
They're trembling in their body to remove all the processes that made them afraid, and it's recycling, and their body is now digesting it and moving it out of their system as they breathe.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we can do it too. We just have to do it.
Right.
It's powerful.
All right. We have a couple of questions, one going back to the ancestors. Can you talk more about how to connect with ancestors? How do you know if you've made genuine contact or if you're channeling something else, for example? So I guess the filtering process of ancestors, how do you know?
When you ask a question from your mind, you create duality, which can be negative or positive. When you ask from your heart, it's oneness.
It's always going to be exactly what you need.
And what you intend.
And what you intend.
You have intention in your heart, to find some malicious thing, then you will find that. But you have to come with a pure heart, and you have to come with an exact question. The universe, for instance, the source will never send you anything that you are not. The universe is a mirror.
Yeah.
So if you channel something that is malevolent and evil and toxic, or a spirit that's coming to harm you, that's a part of you. FYI. It's either
wow, that's powerful. I don't think a lot of people are ready for that level of accountability.
But that's the thing.
People get caught up in the storyline of us versus them a lot.
Exactly.
It makes them feel important.
And that's kind of why it's really important to understand that as we tap into it, because there is nothing outside of you other than yourself. And the universe is only reflecting what it is that you are.
Yes.
And in essence, I'll say that I was attacked within my lucid dreams from a spirit. And I woke up and I was like, I'm going to go and get that spirit and find it. And I literally went into my meditation corner with the intention of fighting a spirit with anger. And Yeshua, thankfully, if you guys don't know who Yeshua is, it's also Jesus. He speaks to me as I'm walking to my corner, and he's like, you have to come with love. And I'm like, all right, homie, whatever. Did you hear what that thing just said to me? I'm going to take it down. And so as I'm sitting down, I feel these soft hands on my right shoulder. And Yeshua, again, he's like, there's only love. And so as I'm breathing, I'm like, okay, I'm not angry anymore then. And so I took some deep breaths, and I had my eyes open, and I ushered that entity back into my presence because I knew it was part of me. I had understanding that this thing is not different from me. It's not attacking me. I am it. And so as I brought that spirit in, it literally appeared on the opposite side of my window as my meditation corner looks out of a window. And so I see it now on the opposite side of the window, looking back at me. And I say to it, I love you. And I'm sorry that that's all you know is fear and hate and torment. And I just give you light, and I give you love. And I hope that you can find your way back to the source. And I released it from my heart. And literally, with my eyes open, I see this dark, wispy, grim-looking creature turn into white light and just dissipate. Amazing. And I hear Yeshua chuckling and shit over my shoulder, talking about, ha, I told you, you have to come with love. And I'm like, you're right. You're right. You're like, I told you. And so you have to understand that any of those ideas of malevolence and spiritual attacks, like that's not real. The universe is way smarter than that. And it loves you way more than that to subject you to something that you're not ready for. And that you're not a part of. You are it. And FYI, it's also a part of the source too. So that's why we have to show it love, because it's a part of the source that is at just a lower vibration. And it's trying to find its way back up to creation. And so moving on from that, connecting to the actual ancestors, envision them. That's it. Like, ask the question. Like the way I do it, I'll say, okay, I know that every single particle of DNA in my body used to be yours. Reveal yourself to me. And so I've seen different ancestral lineages based on that. I didn't see them all at once because I wasn't ready for like the immense connections.
Yeah.
I'm, from my relations back all the way to Egypt and Lemuria. Like, I'm not ready for all that. So they had to give it to me in like basics and what I can digest. So my ancestry from the Mayan side came up. And then my ancestry from Jamaica came up. You see how it wasn't like immediately Africa.
Right.
It wasn't immediately the Aztecs or the ancient Mayan culture. It was little spurts, but I had to recognize that my DNA had the answers. Like I ask my DNA, I ask myself to show me itself. And from there, you just trust.
Right, because
You know?
yourself knows exactly what it needs and wants to
Yeah.
see.
And if you start to not trust and start to question, that's your ego. Like
So
you
ego
know
always brings up question and doubt when searching for inner truth.
exactly. And think about it this way. When you love something or someone, you don't have to question it ever. Not a, like, oh, do I really love this? No, no. You know it.
You just know it.
There's no, and there's a you have such a belief in a fortification in that knowing that no one can ever tell you other than.
So all self-doubt comes from ego. All of it.
All of it.
That's the source of doubt is ego.
All of it.
And everything else is all knowing outside of ego and inside of yourself.
Yep.
Wow.
And that's in your heart. It's in your truth. And going back to the heart, it's the heart brain, the intrinsic cardiac nervous system. Y'all should look it up. It's an actual brain in the heart.
The thing about the heart is that, and we did a workshop last year on the heart, and I'll probably share it for this line of the 2020. But people get so they tend to want to know, like, well, give me line for line, detail for detail, how to tap into my heart. And that's a thing because I compare it to Googling how to jump off of a ledge. Like you just can't find, there's no amount of information that can teach you how to jump off of a ledge. It'll teach you how to get to the ledge, what roads to take, but when you get there, that is between you and you. Yep. And that's the connection with a heart. And how to, the how to is it's you and you.
Yep.
And that's all there is.
and it's not like, I get that question a lot because people are like, oh, how'd you do it? How'd you heal? And I'm like, well, my way is not your way. Mm-hmm. And your way is through your truth, through yourself.
People don't like those answers, Omar.
I know, but that's the point because it makes them accountable.
Right, exactly.
I had to be accountable for and I had to be accountable for where I was and honest with myself on where I was. And then I had to start there. I couldn't be like, oh, I'm up here when I'm lying. Like, no, start where you are.
Yeah.
And be gentle with yourself. Be kind. Be patient. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, a lot of people, this was a really good good discussion because a lot of people are getting a lot from it. Awesome. In the comment section. Oh, there's one more. Okay, wait, I thought we weren't supposed to give it any type of emotion. No love, not forgiveness, not empathy, because they feed off of that energy. I'm assuming she's talking about the, I don't want to make assumptions.
And stuff, like the...
Yeah, like don't give it anything. So you gave it love, which transmuted something, but...
Well, that's where alchemy comes in. You have to know how to transmute, like...
Transmutation. Like, it's not give. So I think from her perspective, Sherilyn, she's thinking that it's just a process of giving when alchemy is literally transmuting and changing the entire thing altogether.
Yep. And it's like, it's just like matching the chemical vibration that's the opposite. So a lot of times in transmutation, you're not obliterating the energy. You're using the energy that is, and you're adding to it to change what it is, and it becomes something different. So what I did was I gave it what it was lacking, and it transmuted into what it is. But to say that I'm giving something is also the illusion, because what am I really giving, right? I just cleanse myself.
Right. And in that process of cleansing yourself, you transmuted
that which was attached. Like, we can't forget that. I didn't give anything because it was a part of me. Period.
Exactly. Amazing. Well, I feel like this is a lot of stuff to unpack, and
Yes.
We did elemental walkthrough week by week last year. I'm going to bring that back because I think it's important to walk through the elements now with
Yeah.
a different perspective with the self-healing that you provided. So that's extra work that we'll probably dive into together because it's so much. But thank you for this, Omar. They're asking about platforms you have. How can they get in touch with you? What are you doing? So, because we have a lot of new people here as well.
Nice.
So yes, and I'll post and make sure that I post your information regardless. Either way, it will be shared, but go right ahead and share.
Well, platform wise, my business is health education. My website is crashbell.com. You can link us there from all ways, social, send us a message. We have a meditation platform, which is subscription based. You can sign up for and be a part of that. What else do we have? We have so much going on, to be honest. And everything that we have it's all health education. It's all about giving you tools so that you can find more about what it is that you are. Now, social media wise, you can find me at Omar_ODD_Davis, and that's my social media platform. But if you link us from the website, you're in the game.
Okay, perfect. All right. So yes, and we will definitely have you on again. We're going to keep this going. Love everything that you offer and share. Always a pleasure. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yes. And we'll see you soon.
Until next time. You guys be well.
Love you guys. Bye.